Hello and welcome into another edition of Huber and Friends. I'm Jeremy Huber, and we're kind of changing it up a little bit this week. We've been really sports heavy over the last few weeks. We're going to a guy who loves sports, but known more for maybe spinning the hot wax, as we used to say in the DJ business. Mike Jones, the afternoon drive DJ on DC 101. And one of my old buddies. Mike, so glad to have you, man. Thanks for joining Huber and Friends.
Thanks, man. This is going to be fun, Jeremy. I appreciate the invite and looking forward to talking about whatever you want to ask.
Yeah, man, it's so good to talk to you again. We've kind of we used to see each other a lot back in the day, and that's where we always start these things off at. In your memories, how did we meet?
Over at XM, baseball channel, probably you were doing updates and maybe on college football as well. But I was working back in the newsroom, just doing my thing. You're doing your thing. And Orioles fans flock together, you know?
Okay, so you're wrong. The way we met was when I was at Triple X Redskins Radio and you were doing weekends at DC 101. And you would come across the hallway because you knew we had pizza deliveries. Because they sent us an ungodly amount of pizza.
Always.
Because we were the Skins, or they were our sponsor, right? And you would come across, which again, I was one of the guys who cut highlights in the back. Say, hey man, can I get a couple slices of pizza? And I said, no problem, man. That's cool. You know, I don't care. We got millions of pizzas. No one is going without pizza tonight. We literally, Mike, at points had the cleaning ladies throwing it out because they didn't want it. They were doing it too. And I remember one time, one of my bosses came out. He's like, man, what was that guy doing here? I was like, well, he's just from DC 101. He just wanted some pizza. He's like, don't give him any pizza. I'm thinking to myself, dude, what, obviously this dude is a radio guy. He's in our fraternity. He he's looking for a little bit of pizza. No big deal. And they were staunchly said, do not let him have any pizza.
Oh, for the
so
love
I think
of
at
God.
one point I had to sadly tell you, hey man, my boss has said you can't have any more pizza.
Way to bring up a tragic memory now. I may have blocked that out. That's why I didn't think about that. See, I thought we had met at XM and you were doing the sports talk on the AM side too at the same time.
Yeah, I think my first few years I was definitely doing both, kind of like you were a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was my first introduction to Mike Jones, a guy coming to get some pizza, politely, I should say. You weren't being a jerk about it. And then my boss is telling me he can't have that. So again, I could never understand that, but that's how I always remember you first.
What's our language threshold here, Jeremy? Let me just do this. F that guy. How about that? F that guy.
We're trying to keep it PG-13.
We'll do it family friendly.
Mike, wanted to kind of get back after that intro there. You're a guy that grew up in Baltimore, obviously a lifelong Orioles fan, which we'll get into, but you grew up there. What are your first radio memories of your time growing up in Baltimore?
Oh, man. Well, growing up back in the day, 98 Rock was always huge in Baltimore, and B104, WQSR, those were like the big stations, Mix 106, everyone was listening to those back in the day. And I just remember hearing those stations, hearing the DJs on there and the music and everything. And it's like, wow, they had the big voices back in the 80s. And it was just like magical hearing them every time. You thought they were real mega celebrities. And I was like, that's something I could do one day. Maybe I could try that out sometime.
Yeah, I remember because we were lucky enough where I was, we actually got 98 Rock. So I remember in high school, we're driving in and you're kind of flipping. And I honestly kind of like 98 Rock better than what I was getting at the time in DC. I believe that was before Elliott got on the scene. And I think, I'm trying to remember, I guess at that point, 1067 in DC had Stern, which I wasn't a huge Stern fan. So I did a lot of listening to 98 Rock. So that was that's a shared experience we have there. We talk about you and your love of the Orioles. Where did that start for you?
Well, I mean, just growing up, getting to go to games at Memorial Stadium and, back in the 80s, feeling that Orioles magic. There were some rough times too, but for the most part, they were a good club back then. And, seeing that and how every night it was a packed house there, it was just a lot of fun. And then moving through to Camden Yards and, in the 90s, and they had a couple great runs there. Then the dark ages in the 2000s, but still kept at it, man. You can't abandon your team. You always got to stick with them. And there we are. There's my brother and I at spring training. Just man, the Orioles have always been a part of my life and loving baseball. My wife and I actually got married there at Camden Yards. There it
And that
is.
one too.
Yep, they let us in the dugout. Couldn't touch the grass, though. They said, if you go on the grass, you're out of here. I don't care if you're the bride, the groom, whoever. You're out of here if you touch that grass.
Yeah, I saw those pictures, and I tell you what, that was a fun one to look in on that on your wedding at Camden Yards.
It was the best.
It sounds like it was a blast,
Oh
Mike.
my gosh.
You go to in high school, you went to Archbishop Curley.
I did
You
go.
don't strike me as a Catholic school kid. How did that kind of shape you?
You know what? I have not looked back on my time in the church ever since I left. But I will say, going to Catholic school all 12 years, from the beginning up until senior year of high school, it teaches you, manners, politeness. We had to dress up in a shirt and tie every day, and I feel like that did help on the way I conduct myself with people. Of like, it's not. No offense to people that go to public school, but sometimes things slide by in public school. In private school, they can do what they want, and you follow the rules. Otherwise, you're gonna get in trouble for it.
You mentioned that, and I feel like you are a guy who is just such a personable dude. Does that come from that? Is that kind of something you already were when you came in? Because every time I see, you're out doing gigs and everyone's excited to meet Mike Jones and you're excited to meet them. Where did that part of your personality come from, you think?
I always like meeting people. I think really though, Jeremy, where it came from, this is going to sound weird, but it was working at Denny's, and I would be waiting tables or I would be cooking and having to interact with so many different people every single day. You have to talk. You have to have conversations. You have to discuss things with people, and just doing that, you want to make it fun. You want to make it sound like you're having a good time with them. So that's where the fun personality started coming out, and just going from there.
Mike, you mentioned before that early on you kind of had the idea that maybe you could do radio, you could do broadcasting. That was something that you could do. Early on, what were some of the jobs for you on the way to that dream?
Well, like I said, Denny's was one of them. These have nothing to do with radio, which is the weird part. Worked at Denny's, then I went to go fix houses for a couple years with the government. Actually, it was like fix low-income housing and help people weatherize their places. I learned a lot from that, which is nice to be handy and be able to fix some things. And then I drove a truck for a warehouse for a couple of years while I was going to college. I did the fixing houses, then driving the truck for a couple of years, and going to college. Those were jobs where I could have a flexible schedule. And, if I need to take off a couple days a week, fine, for school, whatever. So that's how it worked out. Just took what I could get on the way to finally landing a part-time job after college at CBS Radio in Baltimore.
And how did that come about for you?
So when I was going to community college, I was going to Hartford Community College up north of Baltimore, and I was working at the college station, doing my thing, taking any shift I could get, and learning how to run the board. And then I did an internship at CBS in Baltimore in the promotions department. They let me slide over to programming because that's really where my love was at. And I got to work there at ESPN Radio, at WHFS when it was in Baltimore. Jack FM was with CBS and Mix. So we had some good stations there. Light FM too. Got to work and run the board for Delilah and ESPN Radio and do all that stuff. Worked with Tim Virgin and everyone at HFS for a bit. So that got me in to running the board, and then finally got a shot on the air overnights. The sexy Saturday into Sunday morning, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift on WHFS was my first start.
And when was that?
Oh my gosh, that was 2005 or 6, something like that. It's been a minute now. It's been a minute.
So here's a question for you. What are your memories of when they told you? Because obviously you had done things on the air at your college station, and that's what your ultimate passion was. but that moment, take me back to when they told you, and I'm assuming there was a little bit of pestering on your part of, hey man, I can do this, just put me on the air.
A
Take me
lot of
back to that moment
pestering.
that you finally got the go. Okay, look, dude, go do the overnight shift. We'll see what you can do.
Yeah, it was, a lot of pestering, of course, a lot of air checks, which I thought were, some great things back then. I'm sure you did too when you were starting out, Jeremy, and realizing, looking back on it, it's like, damn, dude, you sucked. But they gave me a chance because I knew how to run the equipment. I was willing to show up, willing to be there, and they're not going to lose anything rolling the dice from 3 to 5 a.m. Plus, I was also told you're not getting paid for this. Okay, no problem. So got on there. I got to sit in with the guy before me. Pat Kane was doing 11 to 3 that night. He was working that late night shift, and he let me sit with him, prep my show, do a few breaks just to get comfortable. So that made it a lot easier to get going on the air. That first show was still miserable. I can think right back to that first break being god awful. But after that, it wasn't so bad. It could have been worse. And hey, no dead air. So that was good.
That's the most important thing. When you talk about going back to that, how much did that time behind the board, so to speak, kind of help you there of just kind of knowing and getting to watch people do it and kind of have an idea? You thought you knew because you, I'm sure, listened to a lot of radio, but kind of being able to see the pros do it. How much did that help you when you finally got your chance in the quote unquote air chair?
Oh my God, a ton. Like Tim Virgin was such a big help for me. And he would let me, like, when I would run the phones for him from, 7 to 11, when he would go on HFS, and he'd be like, hey, come edit this call. I'm going to step out for a few minutes. Just let's see what you can do with it. Run the board for a little while. Just for him to let me do that. Then I ran Delilah's show overnight, and it was nice to do ESPN as well. It's nice to do different formats, different styles. So that way you learn the controls, you learn each different thing, and you could be swift on your toes and adapt to different situations fast. That definitely helped too, because once you're in the chair, that's all you. You got to run the board. You got to do everything, plus talk and, be somewhat entertaining to people. So you got to bring it all together. But that time, those months that I spent there watching, running the board, doing all that, that really helps so much.
Mike, one last one in that area. You and I are pretty much the same age. How do you think it has kind of changed the business that kids don't get that kind of all-encompassing background where you had to do a whole lot of jobs at a station, you had to run a board, you had to do different things? How much do you think that really may hurt development of folks coming through the business?
It does. I mean, I wish we had an overnight program for up and comers, because sometimes now they get thrown on and maybe the situation's too big for them and they buckle under the pressure on some things, whereas if you could sit overnight, if you could do your show from, 1 in the morning till 5 in the morning before the morning show gets in and starts doing their thing, if you can, work out your kinks on the board and all that, I mean, that could really help people. And I wish there was more of that. I wish it could give people that want to do it, in your early 20s, when you want to get on the air or something. I wish they would have those opportunities to give them a chance. And also, unfortunately, there aren't the smaller market opportunities either, because they rely on voice tracking and outside help to, do things and lessen the payroll on that side.
Yeah, that's a definite thing. My first job in radio was in my hometown. Wage Radio gave me my first chance to be on the air, and a lot of folks just don't get that chance anymore. You talked about your first on-air job at HFS. You end up eventually down at DC 101. Growing up in Baltimore, how much did you know about DC 101?
I knew a ton because up where I lived in Hartford County, up in Falston, you could get DC 101, you could get HFS down there, you could get HFS when it was down in DC, you could get Mix 107.3. So we had the best of both worlds. We had a lot of DC radio and all the Baltimore stuff too, and some things from Philly and Delaware. If you were on a good night, you could get some signals from there too. So where I was, it was, you could get some clear shots from 4 major areas in the country right there.
Did you have fun kind of turning the dial around and just listening to different stuff and listening to different guys and gals?
I loved it. One of my things, Jeremy, I don't know if you can see, I got the Razor Ramon shirt on today. I remember one of my first shows that I really made it appointment listening. There was a wrestling show on WCBM in Baltimore, like Saturday nights, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. And I would stay up and listen to it, and I loved it, And that's one of the first parts too that made me say, wow, this would be really fun to do.
Talking about DC 101. How'd you get your foot in the door there?
So let's see, it was 2006. WHFS in Baltimore was about to flip to Sports Talk, and they're still the Fan now. I got wind of that. I'm not going to say any names, but I got wind of that a couple weeks before it happened. I'm like, well, crap, I got to find something, because I was actually doing a lot of fill-ins at night and had a regular on-the-air shift going on the weekends. And, I was actually improving, getting somewhat better. But I knew that was going to be taken away real soon. So I said, all right, let me see what's out there. So I looked at Philly. I looked around Delaware, looking on All Access. And then I saw DC 101 was hiring for part-time. And I said, well, DC's kind of a hike, but then so are the other places. Let me see what happens here. And sent him my stuff. And the program director at the time, Rick Schmidt, actually left the week I had my interview. So then I went in with the assistant program director, Danielle Flynn, and Donnie gave me a shot. She was like, hey, you sound good. Come on in, start doing overnights, and let's go from there. So they gave me a shot, and here I am coming up on 18 years later, Jeremy. It's unbelievable. I never expected to be here this long or go through everything that I've done here. Yep. There we are at that's the Virgin Mobile Free Fest. That was a good time there. I remember that. We did a live that might have been my first day live broadcasting, actually.
Wow. We'll get into that in a second. Your early memories of your time at DC 101, I'm sure there had to be a lot of nerves. And anytime you go on, you go on a small station, there's nerves for the first time you do something. But going into one of those legacy type stations where Stern was there, the Grease Man was there, I believe by the time you got there, Elliott was there. What kind of take me through those early days of you being on the air? Was there a little bit of, hey, calm down, I've done this before?
There was definitely that, and not just calm down, you've done this before, but also once, when I started, I was doing the late night overnight shifts. There we are in the old production studio, doing the late night shifts and then moving over to nights. And not long after I'd gotten there, our night person had left. There was some movement around the station. Roach had just gone to afternoons, and I was doing a lot of fill-in at night real fast. And it was really one of those things. Hey, feet in the fire, just like HFS, do it, sink or swim. And I feel like I swam, because I survived it and made that into a full-time job.
Did you change your style up at all, going from the kind of weekend guy who's around to, hey, I'm here at nights, there's still people going to be kind of consistently listening to me?
No, I don't think so. I did find it, though. There's a difference when you go from one or 2 days a week on the air to 5 days a week on the air. And you're like, well, I'm finding content. And I realized it's not bad to repeat some content that you've said, because the guy that's listening on Monday at 6:30 or 7 o'clock is not going to be listening on Thursday at 10 at night. So not that I'm just copying and pasting the break, but hey, I've got this fun story. Let's reuse it down the road, or let's talk about this that I said with the band. You don't need to have a brand new, fresh break every time. You can reuse some things. That's one of the things I learned. Like, don't overthink it in a lot of cases. Just do your thing. You'll be good.
So it sounds like, Mike, from what you're telling me, it kind of was a quick transition over. So there wasn't that moment of, oh, I have my own Monday through Friday shift. You kind of just kept on plowing, right?
Yeah, kept on going. I did the fill-in for a while, and they hired someone else for the night job, which I was a bit disappointed at. But then, not soon after, I got a job working with Elliott in the morning as his content protector, as the dump guy for a while. And while I was doing that, I was on the air on the weekends. And then the part-time opening came up at K-Rock in New York. So another one where I asked permission, because it was different companies. It was CBS and iHeart. But they said, yeah, out of market, go for it. If you want to try that. I auditioned and I got that job at K-Rock for a while, which was pretty cool.
Now, we talked about this a bit yesterday via text. I didn't know you did that, and I thought, okay, obviously he was voice tracking that. You said no, you were driving up or going up to New York. What was that like every weekend packing up for the Big Apple?
It was exhausting, Jeremy. It was really exhausting. So my weeks, I was doing 7 days a week for almost 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Now it's radio, so it's not like I'm digging ditches or moving boxes or anything, but you still have to get there. You still have to perform. So during the week, I would work with Elliot from, let's see, I would get there at like 4:30 to 11. Go, day's over at that point, but that's a full day. You're already done your day. Saturday morning, I was still living in Baltimore at the time.
Okay.
So Saturday morning, I would get on the bus, the mega bus, at 6 a.m. in White Marsh, and that would go right to Grand Central Station, right outside Madison Square Garden. Go to K-Rock. They were nice enough to give me the same shift. I held 2 to 6 Saturday afternoons because I was like, look, I'll do this, but it's got to be the same shift so I have consistency and I can get here. Did that, came back that night, and then Sundays I would do noon to 4 on DC 101.
Wow, that's it
was a lot of miles, dude. It was a lot of miles, but I tell you, I learned how to sleep very easily on a bus. Wrap your bag around your leg, put it down so no one grabs it, and take your Z's.
That's funny. That's funny. Talking to Mike Jones about his time up in New York. You mentioned that job as the dump button guy for Elliot. He is a guy that came in here, and I didn't know who he was, but again, at this point, he's a legacy. He stayed around for so long and been so popular. What did you learn from your time with him? A guy who obviously knew how to do it right because he's been doing it in this market for over 20 years now.
He just celebrated 25 years, actually. Wow. 25 is unreal. I think my 18's a lot. 25, and that's just here. Elliot's been around. Yeah. He was at Z100 and in LA. So Elliot's had one hell of a career. There's no question as to why he's in the Radio Hall of Fame. When you're the content protector, Jeremy, when you're the dump guy, you got to listen to the show and pay close attention. You got to listen to every word. So doing that, it taught me of preparing your show, having different things to talk about. If a segment goes one way, be ready to pivot to another thing. Have that prep ready to go. Also, I learned about interviewing, and Elliot does probably 3 or 4 interviews a week. And, the way he does it, I heard, and I was like, okay, he starts with this, does this. Okay, so do it this way. And I feel like that's made me a pretty solid interviewer. Like that's one of I feel like my strong points of getting to talk to different bands or, be it a celebrity about a movie or an athlete, whatever it might be. That was one of my biggest takeaways from Elliot. The work ethic, the interview style, he really taught me a lot without having to teach me, without saying, this is how you do it. I just got to listen and take it all in.
Before we get a little deep into your interviews, which, like you said, are really good, and you do a really good job with them. Did you ever have any clashes with him on what you were dumping?
There were no clashes with him, but if you ever hear them reference the Foo Fighters' Monkey Wrench, that was me that had to play that song and pull them off the air one day because they were talking about something, and I was told, take them off the air. So if you hear Monkey Wrench and they're talking about that, that was me, and that's always going to be a part of the show. But no, he and we never argued about anything. I always told my program director, it was James Howard, for the majority of it while I was working, doing the dump button. Hey, this is why I did it. This is the reason. If Elliot wants to talk about it, I'm willing to, but we never had any conflicts.
You talk about your interviews, and Mike, you really do run the gamut, because you're not only interviewing, rock and roll stars, you're interviewing professional wrestlers, you're interviewing actors, honestly. And one of the things that I really like about you is that, they're sending you out, you're still doing the blood drives and those type of things. And I feels like you bring the same type of preparation, but also kind of joy for it. When whoever you interview, where do you think that comes from?
I just love talking to people, Jeremy. I always think like I was excited to talk to you about, my silly stories here, but I think interviews, you can ask people questions, you can find some gold, man. When you hit a home run, you know how it is, Jeremy. If you talk to a baseball player or something, there's the Nova blood drive. When you hit a home run with someone, and it can be talking to a wrestler, talking to the lady that ran the blood drive that day, if you strike gold, that's compelling, and that makes it so much fun for the listeners to hear, and inform them about something they don't know too.
Mike, question for you. I'm going to format it this way so you're not kind of outing anybody. What's your best interview and what was your toughest interview?
Oh, toughest. That's a good way to say worst. I'll tell you right now, my worst interview was Pauly Shore, because Pauly wasn't into it. We're trying to promote a show he was doing in DC, and this was, I mean, look, Paulie's star has fallen. Let's be honest here. He wasn't into it. He was barely paying attention. I cut it at 4 minutes. I'm like, all right, Paulie, have a good show, man. I'll see you later. So best interviews, though. I always love talking. Let's see. I love talking to Luke Spiller from the Struts. Luke, I just talked to him when they were at the Anthem recently. He's great. They're always a lot of fun. There we are. There's Luke. I did not even know you had that picture either, Jeremy.
Dude, I did a lot of research last night finding pictures on your Instagram. I think I gave myself a headache.
Let's see. Dave Grohl was great to talk to. I've gotten to talk to Dave a couple times. I think he lights up when you say you're from DC and you're talking about that. Let me see who else. I like the guys from Weezer. I talked to Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons during the middle of our interview dropped a plug for a Kiss album on me. I was like, this is great. I got exactly what I wanted from Gene. Gosh, I'd have to go back and look at them. All the wrestlers, I had fun having Dominic Mysterio in the studio. The Miz is always a lot. He's a bundle of energy when he comes in, or if we talk on the phone. He's one of my favorite WWE guys to talk to. Yeah, just whoever I can get on, man. If you want to talk, if you want to have a good time, I'm all about it. Let's chat. Let's see what's going on.
Mike, there's a question in there that I want to ask. I'm a wrestling fan, not as big as you, but I go way back as well. And I remember when wrestling it's obviously changed a bit lately, what Triple H and the UFC guys have kind of done to build that brand as red hot as it is now. But you were interviewing folks when WWE wasn't doing super great. They were okay. We're not talking about the days of Doink the Clown and that type of thing. But you, I feel like, have always treated those dudes with ultimate respect. Do you think that helped a little bit when it came back around for folks, knowing, look, this dude on DC 101, he's respecting us here, and he's going to ask you, we're not going to try and make us look bad. He's going to come in here and really give us the respect that we deserve for the job that we do. Do you think that helped at all?
Oh, absolutely. I think it helps with all aspects, Jeremy. It's like you've seen interviews where someone gets sandbagged, where the interviewer goes in with a goal of taking someone down. I never go in with that. I want to go in and say, look, you guys are traveling the world all the time. You're doing all these insane moves. You're on TV. You got to keep up these personas. I want to see what they're about and make sure they're having fun when I'm talking to them. I'm not there to throw anyone under the bus, but if someone has Shane O'Mac, there he is. If anyone has, something bad going on, I might not take that interview. I might say, you know what? I'm going to pass on that one, just so we don't have those conflicts, so we don't have anything like that. And what you said, I was interviewing people when WWE was back on the big upswing. Drew McIntyre is one solid brick of muscle, Jeremy. That man is just all muscle, firm handshake too. Doing those interviews when they were on the upswing again, I remember, there were times you go to Raw and SmackDown and Capital One Arena wasn't so full, but I would always have them in and talk to them and try to help them out. And that led now to WWE whenever they're back in town. They're always great about getting someone on with me, and they know I'm going to take care of them. When they do Channel 5 or, NBC4 or whatever, they always make sure DC 101 is on the list to go around to that day.
That's really cool. Mike, and the wrestling, you kind of, it could be a niche type of thing for some folks. When you talk about that, did you make a conscious decision of attacking that, or is that you just kind of taking your passions and being an open book for your audience?
That's an open book thing, Jeremy. It's like also, doing that, but I also every day at 4:50 have a feature called the Mike Jones Minute Con, and we talk about movies and video games and TV shows and stuff like that because I love the nerd stuff. I'm big time into all that stuff. It's just what you do. You can present it to people for, I have like a minute or two every time I talk, when I do a long talk break on the air. So if you think about that and you get your audience to listen to it, it's not the full interview. I'm not going to give you 15 full minutes on the air of what I talked to Drew McIntyre or Dolph Ziggler or something about, but you give them a little clip of it. There are going to be people interested in that, and others are going to hang with you because they're like, hey, Mike's been doing a good job. I'm going to stick with him and listen to what this is all about, and it could be the same where I'm talking to someone about a new TV show and I do a clip of that on the air, or a musician, you give them a piece of it. And then the people that want to find out more, awesome. But you have that content for them right there on the air.
And Mike, that leads me into another question. You, I believe, were a little bit ahead of the curve when it came to social media and recording these interviews and getting them out there. Was that a conscious decision? What did that kind of come from? Because I'm looking back on YouTube and there's stuff from you maybe 12 years ago of good interviews on there. Where did that kind of all come from for you?
I just always said, if I have people in the studio, I want to make sure that we can videotape everything, because as you know, Jeremy, like, radio is great. People also want to see things. People want to see their favorite actor, athlete, WWE guy, musician, whoever it might be. If they come in, I want to make sure to be able to show that to them as well, and point that towards, hey, go on the DC 101 socials, go on my socials, go on, whoever's iHeartRadio, and you can see what's up with it.
Yeah, and you've got a definite social media presence, and I see your cat, Lionel Kitty.
Yes. Lionel's trying to jump up on the computer, so I'm like, let me just grab him here, and we can hold on for a few minutes while we're talking.
I tell you, it is fitting talking with you that you would have a couple of the people from the world of Mike Jones, including Lionel there coming up. Mike, got to ask you, the Afternoon Princess nickname, where did that come from?
Okay, so that was the Midday Princess.
Oh,
that was the
Midday
Princess.
Midday
Yeah,
Princess.
that's okay. That's okay. No, now it's the Afternoon Adventure Tour Guide.
That's right. That's right.
Midday Princess. So when I was, I think we were in third grade. When we were in third grade, and I was at St. Anthony's in Baltimore, we did a field trip to 98 Rock. Okay. And I got to meet Sarah Fleischer. The whole class did. And we got to go in the studio. And I was just, that may have been the moment where I really was like, okay, this is what I want to do. She was the queen of rock and roll. So then I thought, and she did middays. Sarah did middays for a long time. When I got that midday job at DC 101, I was like, I can't be the queen. That's Sarah. But I could be the Midday Princess, because it was just always funny, because they always, like, it's a stereotype in radio. They hire women to do middays. So I was like, well, I'm a guy doing middays. Let me see if I could do this. And that nickname, still, Jeremy, people still call me that all the time. A couple times a week, I still get Midday Princess. Even though people are calling in the afternoon now, they're still like, Midday Princess, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, it's good branding, because I always remembered it. It was Mike Jones, the Midday Princess. Another thing that you really did well is when you would go out and cover concerts, which I want to ask you about that as well, the actual covering of them. But you made it a point with your wardrobe. I talked to Emery Hunt, one of my broadcast partners. He's a guy that kind of came with the loud jackets, a little bit colorful jackets, stylish though. You guys, I don't know if I'm going to say stylish with you, but they are definitely memorable, the things you're wearing. Again, where did that choice come from for you to kind of put a little bit of a flavor and personality in your wardrobe when you go out to do things in the community?
Well, they're definitely not stylish. You're right about that, Jeremy. They're loud and obnoxious for sure. So that's one of my most hideous ones. I love that. The toucans. I remember it was New Year's Eve. That is the first one, the American flag suit. It was New Year's Eve. They were doing the downtown countdown, and Third Eye Blind played, and they said, you got to wear a suit. And I said, well, crap, I don't have a black suit or a tuxedo. And quite honestly, everyone there is going to be wearing a black suit or a tuxedo. Let me find something different. So I found that suit online, ordered it up, had it tailored a little bit to fit me better. And it was a standout for the night, Jeremy. And I was like, wow, people really responded to that. They wanted to take pictures and everything. And that started now. I have a whole closet. I wish I could bring you over to the closet right now. There are so many ugly suits in there and hideous outfits and everything. And it's just kind of been a thing now. Like wearing those things, even on 100-degree days at Kerfuffle or at our Christmas show like that, people love them, you know, and I make it a point to find the ugliest, gaudiest things I have and wear it out. Because why not do it with some style?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of going through on the YouTube side of this, and
fanny packs too.
Mostly suits, and obviously the cowboy hat. You had the Western motif going there, and as you said, it kind of people have been drawn to you with these. But the actual concerts themselves, I'm very intrigued about this because we've both been in radio forever, and most things I have a general idea about. How do concerts work as a DJ going to cover them? What is kind of the process when you go out and cover a concert or a festival?
Well, the good thing is now I can do it all by myself. If I needed to just go me solo, I could, because I need my computer. I need a little, I don't have it here with me, but there's, a little box to go from microphone into your USB and a power source. And that's it. And I can connect to the station, Jeremy, as long as I'm on the Wi-Fi there at Merriweather, at Jiffy Lube, at the Anthem, whatever it might be. I can connect back to the station. I can run everything right from my laptop. So, we just link up with the venues. We made a whole list at the beginning of summer and we said this show. We contacted everyone. They said, great, come out whenever, let us know, remind us, and set up the table and tent. Boom. I'm doing the show live there from Imagine Dragons. We were just out at the show and, I'm able to do that and make it seamless to go from, the Tamo doing middays on DC 101 right to me live from Jiffy Lube.
Are the artists receptive most of the times to talk to you?
Yes. When we're out there, we're usually there well before gates open, and we have a lot of artists come over to do interviews, or I can go backstage, I could just take my recorder and go backstage and do that. But yeah, if the timing works out, if people have their voices, if they're available, yeah, absolutely. Or we could do it on Zoom right before, after, whatever it might be. So as you know, with technology, there's a million ways to do things now.
Going back when you first started doing that, was there anyone that kind of had to show you the ropes when it came to doing that? Or did you just go out one day and said, hey, I'm here to cover this concert?
Well, when we used to do it, when you had to have a person back at the studio to run the control board and everything, that's when it was, we were going out with a couple people, because we would do, maybe two of us would do our show out there and make it worth our while to bring all the equipment. And I learned that, watching Roach and Whitney, who used to work at DC 101. She helped me out at the Virgin Mobile Fest and everything. Plus running the board for people too. You pick that up and you learn, okay, this is what they're talking about. This is what they do. They can have this and that happen. So yeah, doing / listening and being there, all of it comes together to make sure you can do it yourself and have a good time doing it.
Mike, you mentioned technology. Now it's been a game changer. About 4 years ago now, you were dealing with that during the pandemic, the Pillow Fort Studio, as I believe you called it at the time. Take me back to those days where, it wasn't a guarantee of how this was going to go. Your memories of how that all kind of got started. How are we going to broadcast from home and keep ourselves safe?
Oh, sure. Here, I'll even show you, Jeremy. I got the setup right here. There's the same pillows still there. Still see them every day. I work in my little home studio all the time. I do things here. So I remember that in March of 2020, I held out as long as I could, staying there at DC 101, and they were like, you got to go home. So that day they handed me one of these Rodecaster boards and a little, it was a Microsoft Surface, and I borrowed this microphone, which they said I could keep it as long as I need it. They just said, go home. here's how you do it real quick. And that night I tested a break or two and I said, okay. And from there on, again, it was another matter of sink or swim. Do your show from home because we got to broadcast. We got to stay on the air. And, I'm proud of everyone at DC 101 because it was me and Roach and Klinger at the time doing it from home. And we just made it happen. It was, hey, we have to stay on the air. We have to tell people what's going on, but you're going to be at home. The first day probably sounded like I was in a cave, and that's where I got the pillow idea real fast. And I took, we had like a couple old end tables that I built up behind me, and I moved Jeremy, I've moved things around in this room so many times, man. You've probably done it at your place too, of like, I want to make sure this sounds as good as I can. I don't have the money to invest in making this a full-on studio. I'm sorry. I'm not, mega super producer. I'm no, Rick Rubin or anything. I can have the $1 million studio in the house, but let me see what I can do here and try to make it sound as good as I can.
Is there a part of you think, because you kind of came up in radio and you were the guy that did the kind of the menial jobs and you had to kind of get it on the air, that it was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge to figure out, hey, how can we make this sound good? How can we make this work?
Absolutely. Fun challenge is a great way to put it, Jeremy, because it was like, make this happen, make it sound good, make sure the listener still has a good time, and bring that all together. And I was actually, at the beginning there in March of 2020, I had an old computer and I said, I don't know how long we're going to be home for. So I got a new one. I bought a bunch of stuff, bought an extra monitor, and then I kept building and building. And now I have what I have now. So thank you, Amazon, for quick delivery all through the pandemic to help me keep this thing rolling. It makes such a big difference when you have that ability to do things like that.
Mike, you mentioned your wife, you guys getting married at Camden Yards. I feel like she has been at least a social media presence for you in your career, because the way I always see it is she always looks like she's having fun when she's with you. You bring your wife, I was like, look, my wife's having fun. I'm a fun guy, right? How important has she been in your career?
She has been so supportive of everything, Jeremy. Like, when we started dating when I was doing the dump button with Elliot, and I would wake up at 4 a.m. at her place, and she didn't have to get up till later on in the morning. And she's like, oh, but she dealt with it. She put up with my crap. And then I moved to going and working at night, and that totally switched our schedule. And there were a lot of times we only saw each other on the weekend, but she stuck through all of it, all of the nonsense and everything. And as you know, there could be a lot of long days in radio. You might not think it, but there are times when you can work a 10, 11, 12-hour day, and she puts up with it. And every night when I get home, she's smiling and there for me. So she's my rock, and she's my everything, dude.
And, when it comes out to how often does she go out on a gig with you nowadays?
If it's on the weekend, there's a good chance. Like Weezer's coming to the Anthem in a couple weekends, and I'll be broadcasting before there. She'll come out and we'll go to the show together after that. During the week, it's a little tougher depending on where it is, because she also has to work too. She doesn't get the luxury of going to Jiffy Lube Live at noon and parking right next to the gate like I do. So it just depends on things. But she's whenever we have DC 101 shows and events, she comes out all the time, and we're always having fun together.
Does she ever get a little bit of minor celebrity treatment? Like, oh, that's Mike Jones's wife.
Absolutely. She's the star of this show, man. On this duo, Mrs. Jones is the star. Come on. It's her, then Pat the Cat and Lionel, and then me. I'm fourth on that ladder, man. I'm way down on the totem pole.
Mike, again, you're such a personable guy, and obviously you're out there in the community, and it's big. Before I get in, I guess one of my final questions, when you go cover these events up in Philadelphia and different areas, how fun is that to kind of get out of your local market and get up there to some of these festivals?
Oh, it's great. We did Firefly, we did Adjacent, we did a bunch of stuff up in Philly. I love going out to different places. You get to meet different people, you get to build your brand at other spots too. And quite honestly, Jeremy, the bigger your reach, that's going to help you with who you can talk to, with the opportunities you're given. I mean, hey, DC 101's awesome. You add Philadelphia to that and my other iHeart stations, then that really opens up many more doors for things.
Mike, what's the next step, do you feel like, for you in your career? Obviously, you love being where you are at DC 101. Is there any dreams out there, any things that you kind of think attainable that you'd really like to give a shot as you move along in your career?
I mean, I'm coming up on a year now doing afternoons at DC 101, and that was always something I wanted to do. I love doing middays. I did that for 10 years, and that was a lot of fun. And now doing a different shift, doing a whole different show at DC 101 has been a totally different challenge, because I made sure that every hour I have a different bit, a different benchmark, something going on. And it really does up your profile doing afternoon drive. I didn't realize, like, people knew the midday princess. Now, though, the afternoon adventure takes it to a whole new level. So this has been great, and I want to see how far we can take this one. I coming up on the first year, I've got some thoughts about maybe some things we could change, do differently, but it's been great. And all the shows through the summer, getting out and doing that, and let's see what happens with the fall and the winter and everything else that's going to be coming.
Mike, I can't believe it, but I haven't asked you really about the music part of this gig. How much do you love kind of introducing folks to music?
It can be, I mean, look, I got my Foo Fighters tattoo. Oh, where's the camera? All right. I can't.
There you go.
There it is. I'm like, where's my camera? I feel like my mom trying to take a selfie. I love the music that we play on DC 101. I love all the alternative stuff. I love rock and roll. And to be able to, play these songs like Everlong, we've heard it a million times, but it's still fun for me to get to play these songs, because I know that if I'm in the car listening, I'm singing along, and I know that people that are listening are doing that too. And not just with the songs we've heard a million times, but there are new bands too. I get excited about hearing these things and new songs and playing those whenever we get them on DC 101, from big bands, from brand new ones, whoever it might be. I love that we get to hang out and have that bond together, because music, just like sports, Jeremy, they're two of the most important things in my life. They're the things that, there shouldn't be arguing about, unless it's different teams, of course, but
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not political. It brings people together. And that's why I love both of them so much.
Mike, one last one for you. I know that I believe kind of close to your heart, some of the charity work you do. I know you've done some great work with, I believe it's Light the Night, a couple other things. Obviously, we saw that picture of you at the blood drives. Why do you feel like that is an important part of what you do?
It's for us, for all of us that have a voice and we get to help showcase things in the community, Jeremy. It means a lot to be able to put my support behind the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, behind ANOVA or the Red Cross when it comes to donating blood, behind ASPCA and animal shelter organizations. And, anytime we get to help out charities, there's a We Rock Cancer event that's coming up at Capital One Hall soon that I'm helping out, doing an interview tomorrow for. So anytime that we get to do that and help out people that really are making an effort to do better for our world, I want to be a part of that too, and use my voice, use my platform in any way that I can to do that.
Well, you're doing a great job in it in all facets, bringing a lot to the table when it comes to a guy that I believe kind of grew up just wanting to spin records. You're doing a lot more than that now, Mike Jones. Thank you so much for joining us here on Huber and Friends.
Absolutely, Jeremy. Thank you for doing this, man. We didn't even cover XM though. I had a great time over there too, doing sports and everything. That was totally different, but yeah, I tell you what, dude. You and everyone that I've met, it's cool that I have all these friendships from over the years and we can connect. And it's been a bit since we've seen each other, but you connect and we see each other out at events or whatever it might be. And it's like no time has passed whatsoever. We can talk, we can have a great conversation. This has been a lot of fun, Jeremy. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Mike.